Welcome to the Habits of Health Power Half Hour, where we go through Dr. A's Habits of Health one section at a time so that you can create a powerful knowledge base that will equip you for your journey into optimal health and lifelong well-being. My name is Cassondra Reagan, and I am an independent Optavia coach. So we have been going through section 2.5 of Dr. A's Habits of Health entitled Choosing Wisely. Dr. A's color-coded shopping system. And in our last episode, we reviewed fruits and vegetables. We categorized them into low, medium, and high glycemic choices, and we also discussed the functional and dysfunctional ways they can be, that they can be prepared and consumed. We also learned that one fruit or vegetable portion is about the size of a small paperback book and will be approximately a half to 50% of your 9-inch plate. Today, we begin with protein. So protein is a critical component of weight loss. Most protein sources, including fresh meats, poultry, and fish, contain no carbohydrates at all, which means they have a 0 on the glycemic index scale. So calorie for calorie, they are really the best for helping you to feel satisfied and full. It's actually been seen in scientific studies that protein stimulates cells to keep us thin and alert. However, not all proteins are created equal when it comes to weight loss and optimal health. So choose proteins that are low in saturated animal fats. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, what fats look like. Great sources include eggs, fish, and white meat poultry, as well as vegetable sources such as soy and legumes. Dairy is also included in the protein category, but be aware that dairy has a considerable amount of carbohydrates. So when it comes to animal protein, one serving of protein should be about the size of a deck of cards. So first, let's look at fish and seafood. When you eat fish, you're not only choosing a great protein source, you're also significantly reducing your risk of disease. So eating fish 1 to 3 times a week is an important habit of health and can have a profound effect on your well-being over time. In fact, one serving of fish a week may actually reduce your risk of fatal heart attack by 40%. So I want you to notice they have fresh fish and they have canned fish. And I want you to understand that pregnant women and young children probably should limit their intake of fish to once a week due to the potential for high mercury content in some fish. Now let's look at meat. It will be an important habit of health to begin to limit your consumption of meat. Now, I didn't say eliminate, but limit it. But if you do choose this option, let's look at how you can minimize the amount of saturated fat so you can enjoy this great protein source. Let's look at another chart. So I want you to notice in this chart, the top options, buffalo, elk, venison, the wild game, that they are much lower in total fat and saturated fat. Now, the reason this chart does not have the GI is because, again, meat is negligible. It has a 0 on the glycemic index scale. So again, the dark green color are the better or best options. Light green is still a good option. The yellow, it's doable, but you're getting into that middle zone. And then as you get to the darker color of red and orange, it's really something that you want to limit or eliminate altogether. Now, back up to the dark green colors where the wild meat. Did you know that wild meat, the kind our ancestors ate so many years ago, it contains much less saturated fat than farm-raised meat? That is why it's high up on this on the dark green scale. Our cattle fed on high glycemic foods and as a result contain an unhealthy amount of fat. So by eating them, we concentrate our ingestion of fats and calories. So in other words, because our cattle eat a high glycemic diet, they are fatter. Just like when we eat a higher glycemic diet, we are fatter, right? And so farm-fed cattle have high levels of omega-6, which we already have too much of in our diet. So if you do eat beef, make sure it is grass-fed. Now, wild meats, such as buffalo and elk, they contain very little fat and have a higher level of omega-3 is actually what we want. And they're enjoyable. And you can often get wild game at stores such as Whole Foods Market. Now, traditional beef is fine if you select cuts such as fillets and sirloins rather than those that contain excess marbling from fat, because that marbled fat is saturated fat. Saturated fat is solid at room temperature. Now, remember, there are both functional and dysfunctional ways to consume our foods. The whole state is always the healthiest, and baking or broiling is always the best way to prepare our meats. But of course, in our modern American diet, we have taken whole proteins and we've processed them down into incredibly toxic food products. So, processed lunch meats, hot dogs, and hamburgers, those frozen pre-processed hamburgers, they are sky high in saturated fats and sodium. They stimulate inflammation and they negatively impact our heart, blood vessels, and brain. Now, one large study discovered that those who ate just one daily serving of red meat, for example, a hot dog or 2 slices of bacon, now those are processed red meats, right? They had a 20% greater chance of dying during the 28 years of that study. Then, of course, we take these already toxic foods like frozen hamburgers and hot dogs, and we throw them on the grill where we char them. That char, which is tasty, forms extremely dangerous substances called glycation end products, which make these foods 200 times more immunoreactive and also viciously attack your body. So the char that forms, it smells and tastes great, but it turns out to be the least healthy part to eat. However, we will discuss this more in section 2.14, inflammation, dousing the flame. Okay, because that char, it creates free radicals in our blood system, which just attacks our immune system, causing widespread inflammation. That's why it's cancer causing and things like that. But we'll talk more about that later. So let's move on to poultry. Chicken, turkey, and other poultry are healthier choices than red meat, but we still need to be cautious. The health value of poultry can actually vary depending on the type of bird, what part you eat, and of course, how it's prepared and cooked. So, for example, skinless turkey breast is 18% fat, while a skinless chicken breast is 24% fat. And while I don't want to burst your bubble, manufactured products such as turkey sausages, hot dogs, and burgers made from, turkey and chicken aren't really that much healthier than their meat counterparts. I'm sorry. Again, let's look at the chart. As a general rule, avoid eating the skin on poultry. However, it's really a good idea to cook the poultry with the skin because it traps the juices in it while you are baking, grilling, or broiling. Especially if you are grilling and the skin is what gets charred, then you can discard that skin and eat the uncharred pieces of your poultry. Now, a final piece of advice. Free range or organic poultry can help you avoid the antibiotics and growth hormones that are given to many commercially raised birds. And as far as portion size is concerned, you should ideally end up with a piece that fits in that 25% protein portion of your plate. So 1/4 of your 9-inch plate, or again, about the size of a deck of cards. Moving away from meat, let's look at eggs, legumes or beans, and dairy products. Eggs are an incredible source of protein that is packed with amino acids, B2, B12, folate, and vitamins D and E. Most of the protein in an egg is found in the white, while the fat, vitamins, and minerals are mostly in the yolk. Now, this is a little controversial, right? So while eggs are low in saturated fat, they're a major source of cholesterol. Now, cholesterol is a complex topic. There's the good cholesterol, the bad, the kind you eat, the kind your body naturally makes. And then there's the fact that cholesterol can be found in every one of your body cells and is a crucial building block to our cell membranes. And of course, we only know and have only ever heard cholesterol is bad. It's also needed for the body to make vitamin D and the hormones testosterone and estrogen. However, in the past, US dietary guidelines place cholesterol restrictions on our diet of 200 milligrams a day, which is about the size of one small egg. So, as of the publication of The Habits of Health of this book, these guidelines were still in place. However, researchers haven't ever definitively linked the consumption of cholesterol to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. As a result, the US dietary guidelines no longer have suggested cholesterol restrictions. Instead, the emphasis is now placed on limiting how much saturated fat and trans fats we consume, which has been linked to cardiovascular disease. So where does that leave us with eggs? Well, I eat about 2 eggs every single day, and my blood work consistently shows no elevated cholesterol levels. My suggestion to my clients is if you've been consistently on plan, you've radically transformed your diet, and your cholesterol levels are still elevated, try cutting back on your egg consumption. But if that doesn't work, even with you having eliminated most sources of cholesterol, then you may be one of those individuals who naturally creates too much cholesterol on your own. And that's definitely something you want to discuss with your primary care physician. And now onto legumes, beans, right? Legumes is a group that includes beans, peas, and lentils and are a super functional food because they are a good protein source. And they're usually very low glycemic. So they're a wonderful alternative for vegetarians. They are full of riboflavin, and I hope I said that right. That's how I've always said it. Niacin, folate, calcium, potassium, iron, and phosphorus. They are high in soluble fiber, which naturally lowers cholesterol. So let's look at the chart. Legumes, 1 cup of legumes gives you 110 to 150 calories of the best fuel you can buy. So they have those carbohydrates for energy, they have the protein. So choose from any of the varieties in this chart for the protein portion of your meal. That is if you are not on the optimal weight 5-in-1 plan with the prepackaged fuelings. If you're doing Dr. A's healthy eating system, you can choose from any of the varieties in the chart for the protein portion of your meal. All are low glycemic and do an excellent job of turning off your insulin pump. Now, again, if you are on the optimal weight 5-in-1, then in your guide, you have the protein that is appropriate for you on that specific plan. Now, notice soybeans are in the very low GI section. And Dr. A wants to talk about the soy just a minute. He says one particularly amazing legume stands out, and that is soy. So soybeans have twice as much protein as other legumes and provide nearly as many essential amino acids as animal protein. And we know essential amino acids are the building blocks of muscle and protein. But they don't have the saturated fat. They're a good source of calcium as well, making them a great alternative to dairy products. So, in addition, soy is full of natural occurring isoflavins, phytonutrients that protect against cardiovascular disease, especially in the Asian population. So, Dr. A loves soy so much that it's his top choice for the protein component of our fuelings, our portion controlled prepackaged meals, though he does have other sources of protein. And so he really encourages people. Now, those of you who are a little afraid of soy, we can talk about soy later in as we explore the habits of health. But modern science opinion on soy has changed drastically in the last 10 to 15 years. So now let's talk about dairy products and cheese. So Dr. A says that dairy products are not a necessary food group once we are grown. Sad, right? But because they can contain a lot of calories, that's the main reason he suggests you use sparingly during phase 1. But if you are using, again, the optimal health 5-in-1, you don't get dairy, right? But if you enjoy dairy, it's a protein you can incorporate during phases 2 and 3 of your health journey. But just be aware that though it has protein, it also contains lactose, a natural sugar. This can potentially make dairy high glycemic. So whole milk dairy products are both high in saturated animal fat and high glycemic, a super unhealthy duo that shoots up your insulin while creating ready stores of fat. However, there's an upside to this. If consumed in a controlled manner through portion control, there is growing evidence that it can lower your cardiovascular risk and the risk of diabetes. Yay, yay for me. There could be benefits from the fatty acids found in dairy that may rev your metabolism, regulate hormones, cause you to store less fat, keep you satisfied, things of that nature. And of course, dairy is an excellent source of calcium. So as said before, in phase 1, dairy should be used sparingly or not at all if you're using the prepackaged fuelings. And once you've reached your healthy weight, you may opt to include 2 to 3 servings of the dairy a day. Now, good choices include 6 ounces of non-fat yogurt, ricotta or cottage cheese, low fat, of course, 1 cup of non-fat milk, or 1 ounce of cheese. Remembering, 1 ounce of cheese is about the size of 2 AA batteries. So just imagine that in your brain. And let's look at a chart. Again, cheese, they are rating this according to calories per ounce. So the lowest calories per ounce are cottage, ricotta, mozzarella. Brie is in that region of not too bad, maybe want to do it every once in a while. And then just notice all of our really favorite cheeses, they start to increase in the red. And the idea is you just want to learn to make healthy choices, right? You want to indulge sparingly, if at all. Look on the right side, soy is lower calorie. Then you have feta, American, but is American really cheese at all, right? And then blue. And finally, one brief moment about seeds and nuts, which Dr. A calls your high octane fuel source. So seeds and nuts are so nutrient dense, low glycemic, and protein rich that they are often thought of as superfoods. However, they are also energy dense, which by now you should know means they have a lot of calories. The serving size can vary per type of nut, but it's no more than a small handful. And let's look at our final chart. Notice here that the seeds and nuts are very low glycemic. They're on the 15. They all have a glycemic index of 15. Peanuts, Brazil nuts, pumpkin. This list is not exhaustive. If you think that you have had enough, you've probably had too much, right? The serving size is very small for nuts. Well, that is all for today, everyone. Next time, we'll continue section 2.5 by reviewing how to shop for grains. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends who need greater health in their lives. Have a blessed week, and I'll see you next time.